Welcome to 60 Minutes with a Woman, the podcast where we sit down with remarkable women. In each episode, we dive into their journey, the challenges, the triumph, and the lessons that shape them. Get ready for raw conversations, inspiring stories, and actionable insights to fuel your own success. Tune in because every woman's story deserves to be heard. Hey Tamara, welcome. Thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure. This was long due. We were supposed to go for a drink and then it ended up becoming a podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, and it is long due. I'm so glad we got it on the calendar.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you are a real estate entrepreneur and you have recently decided to take on a role of more of an educator and mentor for people who are interested in real estate. You also own a nonprofit. I met you it was almost a year ago. We met at a networking event, and it was a real estate networking event. And what I can say is when I saw you, you had a beautiful big smile on your face, and you came with the best energy in a room filled of people you didn't know because you came by yourself, and you just conquered every group. Go-getter like you are. You were just talking left and right, trying to see if there was some synergy with people, finding eventual partner, exchanging information about real estate. I immediately saw your entrepreneur mindset. And I meant to ask you for a long time, is this something you've always been doing? Have you always been such a go-getter like that, trying to kind of work for the success of your business?
That's so funny. It's always funny to hear how people perceive you. Yes, it kind of it comes naturally to me just because I love people and I love what I do. I love real estate and I love beyond real estate. So it's easy for me. I mean, I'm a big connector, so I love connecting with people. So that aspect comes very naturally to me and very easy to me. So yes, that's just who I am naturally.
So you've been in real estate. I mean, I know of you that you're in real estate. Have you always been in real estate?
No, I fell into real estate.
Okay.
I fell into real estate backwards. It was not something I was ever looking to get into. I don't always love real estate. It's kind of a funny story how it happened. Long story short, I was in the fashion and entertainment industry when I got out of school. I loved it. However, I found myself working really long hours, achieving, like a lot of people have that same response when I say that. I found myself working really long hours, achieving someone else's goals and not having time to achieve my own, right? And I always knew for me that the corporate world wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to be my end result, right? So long story short, I was working really long hours, not having enough time to achieve my own goals, and it got old very quickly, right? So I said, there's got to be a better way. And I was determined on finding it. I did know I was going to be an entrepreneur, but I did not know how I was going to get there. So I did what they tell us to do. I went back to school. I got another degree, essentially only to find myself in the same position. So I landed a job in the marketing and world, and I was working again. I was making a little bit more money, but it also canceled out my time because it required more of it. So I was with that company for about a year, and I restructured the position I was in. I made them well over $1 million. Essentially only for them to tell me that they don't give raises. That was how I translated what they told me. And
that's frustrating when they do that. It's you give your all, and then this is what they expect from you.
Right.
Right. That's all.
Exactly.
No reward at the end.
So why am I doing this? Why am I working my butt off for someone else when I could be doing it? And I didn't even love what I was doing, which is really hard for me. I'm a passionate person. So I have to be doing things where I see a purpose, where I know it's my vision, my goal. Otherwise, I just won't last. It'll fizzle out. And that was essentially what was happening there. So long story short, that was when I knew it was time to step out of my comfort zone and figure out, what that was. And I had a friend at the time, I'm from Philadelphia, who he said, And I was
that's where the good energy comes from. There you go.
There's mixed reviews on that, but I'm glad to hear. Maybe it's just the sports fans that get the bad rep. But so he said, and I was going to go into interior design because I do have a lot of creativity that I like to tap into. He said, get into real estate, secure your financial future, then do the whole, you can do while you're doing the whole design thing. And no one like spoke like that to me.
Who said that?
A friend of mine.
A friend of yours? Okay.
Yeah. So I said, I'm not walking through dirty houses. Like at that time, I was not open to real estate. He got me into real estate. Like I ended up walking through houses. I hated it at first because I was like, this is gross. But when I saw the transformation in houses, when I saw how you're solving, like people have a misconception of real estate, that it's all about the money. It's not about the money. It's really about solving people's problems. And they're serious problems a lot of times.
I agree.
So I became very passionate about helping people solve their problems. And that's why I ended up enjoying real estate so much. It wasn't necessarily like I still don't love certain aspects of real estate. But for me, it's also a vehicle to get me to my end goals, right? I probably will always be in real estate because I want to do bigger things in the world. And the way I saw that is by making a lot of money in real estate. So I have the money to do more of the
philanthropic,
more of the nonprofit and giving back to the different areas that I'm more passionate about and spending. Like I'm very passionate about kids. I'm very passionate about public speaking, so ultimately, I didn't get into real estate because I love real estate. I got into real estate because I love the results I can get from it. And, one of my bigger visions, I want to build an empire with my family, right? So for my future kids, for my future husband, I want my kids to see that there's a different way to do life. And I want to create the generational wealth. Ultimately, that was the biggest reason that I fell in love with real estate, because I can see, I see families doing it together. And that's ultimately my goal. And I want kids to see, my kids and kids in general, to see that there's other ways. You don't have to go into a corporate job. You don't have to go into a 9-to-5. They teach us, they train us to go into a 9-to-5, but it's really not for everyone, right? I was pretty miserable like half the time. And that's, we get one life. It goes by in the blink of an eye. So we want to be spending our life intentionally doing the things we're passionate about.
I absolutely agree, and I hear that more and more, that the American dream is dead, and corporate world is not where people are supposed to go, and money isn't that great, and you're slaving your time away, and you're not getting a lot, in exchange for it. And I think that there is just a global realization of people wanting more. It's very difficult. Back in the days, $100,000 was great money for a family. Nowadays, you both have to earn $100,000, and you can barely buy a property, because this is what's going on with the current interest rate, for example. I've been working with families trying to find their forever homes, and they had to compromise on so many levels that they decided that they just prefer to rent and stay where they were, although they were already miserable, and they felt like now was the time in their lives where they needed to upgrade, because this is what everybody think, right? You get the job, and then you get the partner, and then you start the family. And then you buy the house, and then you start the family. And we can't do this anymore. And I think this is where there is a major disconnect between once again, people's expectation and what the corporate world, really brings to them at this point. So I absolutely understand what you mean about that. The other thing is, I agree with real estate. It is one of the only business where you can really work with your family and kind of have not a certainty, but you are almost sure to be able to find a buyer at the end. Like it's less risky than starting your own skincare, which might take years, from now to get recognition, or, have the buyers, the amount of money you need really to survive or grow your business. So I think that real estate is great to start. like you said, it's not for everybody. I believe that you need to like real estate. You need to be a hustler. Everything I saw on you, in you, sorry, it really, this entrepreneurship, like this go-getter energy, you need a lot of that in real estate because it goes up and down. But I definitely agree. It fulfills you in so many ways. And it's a great transition. It's a great way to transition if you are not sure on what you want to do, but you want to start a business, because you can also rely on the passive income.
Right.
Long term, forever. Tap into your equity.
Right.
Take that equity, do something else with it. Or maybe repeat the same process and grow your wealth. Everything you just mentioned, real estate is great for that. And you've taken a role of like educator and mentor. So what does that encompasses? What do you do for people? And how did you even get there, wanting to share your experience with other people?
Yeah. So I consider that I was fortunate because I literally fell into a community of real estate investors, and their whole philosophy is, first of all, educate people, which is the best thing that could have happened to me, because I was initially trying to learn from one person, and again, he was great and definitely got me into real estate, but that can only go so far in my experience. And then so when I got myself educated, I bought like their education, and it was phenomenal. And then you get into this community of real estate investors, and that was probably the best thing that happened to me, because had that not happened, I honestly don't know if I would still be in real estate, because it's challenging. And like you said, like you have to be the right kind of person to be in real estate. You have to be thick-skinned.
You have to. I agree.
So, and you have to have support. So I had so much support from this community. I had mentors, and they, walked me off the cliff, so to speak, a few times when I wanted to get out of real estate, because I was like, this is hard. This is not what I thought it would be, and I'm so grateful that I pushed through all those times that it was really hard, because real estate really is the way to go. You just have to be prepared. You have to have the right support. I think you have to have the right knowledge to get into real estate, because it's not what they make it look to be on YouTube, right? It's very different than YouTube University, and it's very different than what they show on these TV shows. So having the right support system was key for me. Having the right knowledge was key, and just having great people who, to this day, like, are there for me constantly. So once I became more confident in my real estate, it started happening where people would ask me, they'd see me doing stuff, and they're like, hey, how do you do this? How do this? So it kind of fell into my lap. And I do enjoy it, because essentially I'm empowering people to, step into their power, to empower themselves, yes. Right? Their families, make the changes, do the things that outside of the mold that we're told to do in the 9 to 5. And honestly, I believe that more people want to do it. They don't know the way, or they're afraid to do it. So when I got the support that I was receiving, and how important it was to me, it was just an easy transition for me to start doing the same thing. And I love it. I've got people that are thriving, and again, it's not for everyone. Like, and I tell people that right off the bat, because that's the last thing I want, is someone to come to me and say, well, I thought this and I thought that. Like, it's hard, you have to have grit. You have to be able to adapt and do the things. But for the people it's amazing. I love to support other people the way I've gotten the support. I love to help people take their lives to the next level, and especially empower them with financial literacy, because that's essentially what real estate is. And I agree. It's great to see what people achieve from there,
So what's essential set of skills and traits does someone need, according to what you've witnessed while mentoring people interested in real estate? What do you think it takes to succeed with real estate, to stick and succeed in real estate?
I think one of the biggest things they have to have is a vision and commitment to that vision. Because if I didn't have the commitment to my vision of, helping others and essentially, my own family, I would have quit. It's the vision and the commitment that you make to yourself that keeps you going on the days that it's hard, that keeps you going on the days that you want to quit, So those are two of the most important things. And the drive, you really have to have drive. You're a successful agent. Like you don't become a successful agent in New York.
You have to have the drive. It's not even agent. It's not even the same. It's mainly an investor. You have to have the drive because selling real estate is all about helping people connect with the right property and then assisting them with every legal matter, around that mortgages, attorneys and title company and the whole and walking them through the whole process until they receive finally the keys. And then, also educating them about taxes, how to, segregation costs, all those important little details that you need to know in real estate when you become a homeowner. Like I said, you're helping people, but when you're an investor, first of all, I feel that a lot of, and this is just my point of view, but I feel that not even the money is the first obstacle, it's the underwriting. A lot of people do not value the power of underwriting and don't have an exit strategy when it comes to investing in real estate. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's really what I've noticed is, and I'm going to take an example of a person that I met at a networking event. He was telling me how, for example, he found a deal in Florida. And it's been 9 months now overdue that this property should have been finished and on the market to be sold, and it wasn't the case because the contractor was pretending to work. And each time because he wasn't there, each time he was going down, he just realized how far they were from finishing this house. And I said, see, it's like community, back to what you said. It's very important to have, for example, if you don't have somebody who can look after, the progress of the work for you, you should have maybe offered to the contractor to get, a portion of the profit once you sell.
Right.
And then collaborated with him, on a partnership. So you don't pay him, weekly or monthly, or once the job is done, you can finance the materials. And then at the end, you both get paid once it gets sold. So this is a great motivation, for example. So I think that we need to strategize. We just need to be smart about the way we handle opportunities. And this is, I feel, where people tend to fail. Because once again, not only is it important to know who you're working with, but it's important to find the right deal in the right place and have an exit strategy in case if the market shifts and not lose everything. Right?
You're spot on with that. Like I was taught not to get into a deal unless you have 3 exit strategies.
Okay.
So, and what I've loved as I've grown as an investor is, so I don't do the traditional stuff anymore. Like when I first got into real estate, I knew wholesaling, I knew rentals, and I knew fix and flips.
Okay.
I once in a while still do fix and flips, but everything else I do is more seller finance. So there's a couple of deals I was in that I needed to pivot. And that's the power of being properly educated is you know how to pivot, you know how to switch exit strategies. And that I think that right there will make or break someone and make or break a deal if they don't know how to pivot when the market shifts. I mean, the market has shifted so much over the past few years.
It did.
So I think you really nailed that. And, sometimes, listen, flips are wild. They're so wild.
Most of the time. Like, first of all, because you don't know what's laying under everything you're about to knock down. So
when you asked me about my first flip, I was like, oh, I don't want to relive that right now. But I walked away. I mean, but here's the thing, though. What I've learned to love is having multiple exit strategies and knowing how to pivot, right? So when I say seller finance, so I've started to get away from flips and traditional rentals because I love lease options now. They've become my passion for so many reasons. So I don't buy traditional rentals.
I'm curious to hear that because I haven't tried.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of my favorite strategies for a variety of reasons. It definitely aligns with my values more in terms of, so what you do with the lease option is instead of just having a traditional rental, it's such a win-win because you have tenants in place and ultimately their goal is home ownership. But right now, over 80% of Americans that might have shifted a little bit, but don't qualify for a mortgage, right? So I saw an opportunity there to jump in and help people like on their dream of owning home ownership through lease options. Because the way I structure it is I give them the opportunity to rent for 2 years, and this is just the time frame that I negotiate with them. They rent from me. It gives them time to get themselves organized, get themselves back on track with finances. It also gives me the opportunity to know that they're going to be good tenants and I can rely on them for paying the bills and get to know them. And then after those 2 years, up front, they buy the option. So they get the first right of refusal to buy the house after that time frame is up. And as long as they're in good standing and have had a good history with me, I will offer them seller finance. So what happens is I basically become the bank for them. They don't have to qualify for a mortgage to the bank. And it's a win-win because I no longer have to deal with like the taxes, the termites, or, the repairs, and they have home ownership and I collect the cash flow. Right. Mm. So for me, it's been such a win. I just started this about 2 years ago, and I had my first tenant execute on it, and it's been beautiful. And here's what this will never leave me. It's so special. So when she found me, she just got out of a domestically abusive relationship and living in her car. So that's horrible. And her husband was at that time, she was married for like 10 years or something. So she didn't know how to manage finances, and this is where, it's really become a bit of a passion of mine to empower women. She didn't know how, because I can relate to this. At one point, I didn't know how to manage my finances. I relied on, my father. So she didn't know how to manage her finances. She didn't know how to get into home ownership, all the things. So when she found me, she was living in her car, and literally all she wanted was peace, right? That's all she wanted, and a safe place to come home. So it's been beautiful for me to see how her life has evolved since she's gotten back on her feet. Now she has a great job, and she's the first one of mine to execute the lease option and she is so grateful. She makes me every time I visit, she makes me all this face wash. She has a side hustle. So it's really cool to be a part of someone's journey like that. It's become the most rewarding thing. And from a real estate side, I don't have to deal with tenants because these people want to own the home, so they care. They have more skin in the game. It's not like I'm getting phone calls.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point because this is always the complicated relationship with tenants. They think you're getting rich out of them, when you are the landlord, and when you're the tenant, once again, you don't want to take care of the place because you're like, this is temporary. This is not mine. So yeah, there is an issue there. It's so that's great that you were able to kind of find a common ground for both you and your tenants.
Yes, and I've become passionate about this strategy. So, and then I move them into seller finance, and so they don't have to get a mortgage. I get cash flow. Again, it's a win-win. So,
do you charge interest?
I do, and I usually go with whatever is the interest rate going on the market or at the time. Okay. So yeah, it's set up like a traditional mortgage, just easier for them.
So what are the requirements for anybody who is interested in? Well, do you have kind of a list of properties that you might want to find a tenants for? Because I can put it in the description of the podcast for whoever is interested.
I do have a few properties, but what has been working well is people will find properties and they'll actually bring them to me when they find out that this is what I do. So it's been a little bit of both. Like I've picked up my own properties and found my tenants, and some have. And then once people have a good experience with me, they go tell their friends and like, oh, well, I want to do that. So it's kind of a little bit of both.
And what are the criteria for the properties that you want? What do you ask them to look for?
So the biggest thing I look for, and it depends on the market I'm doing this in because it changes. Like I do this in lower entry markets where properties are not as expensive as they are in this area. And then I just started doing it up here. Up here, it's going to be a little bit different because like, I'll give you an example of someone up here that this would be great for. You've got these successful business owners or entrepreneurs who make great money, but on paper, they look broke. Yes. Right. So they'll have like $100,000 to put down, but they can't get a traditional mortgage. So people like that, I've been able to help a lot in this area. Now it's different in other markets that I'm in. When I do this strategy, I started out in a market that, like I mentioned, it's low entry, not as expensive. So now that's different because I'm working with different people who don't necessarily have as much money. So they can only really afford, like, I try to go for 10%, but typically they can only afford $3,000 to $5,000, and that's a lot for them. They've been working really hard to save up for that. So you have to be aware of who your client is in which market. So it just depends on the market, it is what it comes down to.
And do you invest mainly here in New York City, or do you have other states that you like to?
I stay out of New York City.
You stay out of New York City, and this is for me the best. It's true. I concur. It's if you want to make money, you can't stay in the 5 boroughs here. It depends actually, because Brooklyn has many up and coming neighborhoods such as Flatbush, sorry, and then Queens is just also booming tremendously. You have a lot of opportunities, but I'm afraid to deal with the city.
Exactly. Listen, I'm here thinking about real estate. You just have to pick what problems and what headaches you want. And I had a sample. I was in a
pick your fights.
Pick your fights. I don't want to fight New York.
I don't want to fight New York either, especially because it's already difficult when you have a property. It's you come up with a budget of $100,000 and then it ends up already being 150, 200 sometimes, depending,
right.
On what problems you might find in the property. So you already have some wiggling room because you need it to not to make sure you're not losing money. But then when the city decides to delay everything, there is nothing that can prepare you for such a major loss when they don't give you the green lights, right, to start digging the ground or
listen, I always say, if the right opportunity presents itself, if the numbers are right, I would be open to something in New York, but that's such a big if. And
I know.
Like, if you put it on my lap and it was like, here, you're going to make $100,000, there's so much more that comes with that. Like, it's not just about the money in New York. It's a tenant-friendly state. So I've heard of cases where tenants have been in the properties. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, they're just, like, for over a year not paying rent. I mean, landlords have expenses. It's not just like landlords are rolling in the dough. People have that idea that they're making, like, yes, we make money, but we have to pay our bills. We have to, feed our families. There's other things that go on. So the appreciation might make up for the loss of rental income because it is an appreciating state. But
Well, unscrupulous, landlords have just forced every landlord to just walk with this reputation that didn't especially, earn. Although you're a good landlord, sometimes it doesn't really matter for the tenants. I think it's also a matter of selecting the right tenants. At some point, I've noticed that building a relationship with the tenants and realizing that a lot of landlords just want the place to be rented. They
right.
want to put somebody in there. And this is the issue. And you know what? In life, with this energy, this is what happens. You just want to get the money. You're not sure of who you're leaving your investment with, who's going to be your tenants. Then you might just get what you asked for.
Right.
Obviously, people can change sometimes. Looks can be deceiving, and people say that, they're going to be the greatest tenant, and then they turn out to not be. And I understand absolutely this version as well. And sometimes, life changes and tenants can just not afford anymore. They don't know where to go. So I think it's just all about, once again, I think that when you go with the right energy in life, it brings good people. Like, so far, I had amazing tenants. I had few issues, but honestly, still really blessed. Hopefully, I'm hoping they feel the same way, but really blessed about it. This is also why I love real estate. I think it's like you mentioned, it's a people business. Yeah. You work with people. You work with something that is very important, by the way, because it's about, providing a roof for them. So it's a privilege.
It's a privilege.
Yes.
And yeah, it is a people business. Yeah. And, one of my favorite mentors, he says, provide value for people, provide more value. And, I have fantastic tenants right now. And it's because,
that's great.
Yes. And, it took me a second to get to that point. I've only had one eviction, and which obviously no one likes to do those, but I have. And that was an interesting. You always have some issues that come up. You're not going to know everything up front, but the tenants I have right now are fantastic. They're endlessly grateful and just so good. And yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with you have to care. You know what I mean?
You have to care.
It's
you
not
know
just
what?
about the money.
I was actually looking at TikTok, and there was somebody complaining about the fact that they were freezing in their own apartment. And I don't even conceive the fact that you're not providing, basic needs in an apartment. How could you let somebody freeze? It's freezing outside. You need to jack up a little bit of that thermostat, right? Like, let's not be greedy. It just, yeah, you might just, have a smaller profit that month. But like I said, we're dealing with humans. It's not all about business right there,
Right. And here's the thing. Like, I do little things for like, I had an air conditioning go in one of my houses this summer, and I've got a family of 3 in there, and they're all young kids. And this is in the South, so it's hot. Right. So, he picked out this air conditioning, and I said I would take care of it. And it was like a $200 air conditioning. You know what? And I could tell they were going to need something a little bit more powerful. So I spent like $600 on a really top of the line air conditioning because I don't want to have any problems with it again. And they were so grateful, right? It's just little things.
For sure.
You have to put people before the profit.
Yes, I agree.
And
it's people before profit.
When you do that, it comes back to you, like you're saying. Like when you do that, like they are so courteous and they're so thoughtful. Like they're fantastic. So you just do little things like that for people, and you make sure you let them know that you care. Like, I don't want them sitting in a house that's going to be hot all summer.
No, for sure. It's about, no, you just said it. Said it. It's people before profit, and it's very important. So what you said at the beginning, you were doing a lot of single families, right? Is it still what you do right now? You focus on single families?
It is, but I'm actually starting to get it into more multifamily for a variety of reasons. You can scale a lot quicker in multifamily. I'm probably going to stay in the 1 to 4 family range. But yeah, so this is like a more recent decision. So it's still coming into play, but yeah, you could just scale quicker. And right now, so a little bit of a backstory, I ended a partnership through COVID that, I can hit on partnerships in a second, but partnerships aren't all they are cracked up to be. It's like a marriage, essentially. So if you get into a marriage with the wrong partner, it's, it can be ugly. So long story short, thankfully, he was a good person, just bad partnership, terrible partnership. So long story short, we ended that partnership. We liquidated every property we have, and I started over from scratch. So that was interesting. I mean, because one of my fears, the only reason I got a partner in the beginning, because I was afraid of dealing with contractors, and I didn't know anything about the construction side. And what's ended up happening is my contractors have been some of my biggest blessings.
Huh.
Like,
see,
I laugh at that every day. Like, I had a bit of a wild experience with a tenant that I inherited, and my contractor literally went in and did everything. All he did is make a phone call and say, "Hey, you want me to go in here?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, I didn't even go to the property. He did everything. He got them out. Like, it was amazing.
All right, you're gonna have to drop that number.
Yeah,
we need to know who is this contractor.
So my contractors have been my biggest blessing, but back to the point. So I restarted rebuilding my entire portfolio through COVID. So that's been an experience.
A good one or a challenging one?
Both. Because it's a lot. It's a lot to build a portfolio. And I had to learn a lot of the skills that he had been bringing to the table. So I had to learn, which is great. These are probably things I should have learned. Like, funny story, I built a reputation for myself that I have never had to go out and find properties because I've positioned myself so that people bring them to me.
I love that. I don't have that deal flow, so I love it that people can rely on you and know that who to call when they need to give a deal, to somebody.
And it's been beautiful. However, there was like a small period of time where everything was dry and no one was bringing me properties. So I was like, shoot, I have to figure out how to find my own properties.
You gotta go out there. You gotta go out in the field and start to door knock and stuff.
Yeah, I haven't quite gotten to that, but it keeps coming into my world. I don't know about that, but I have started to learn how to find my own properties. And then just when I started to figure it out, I had someone bring me a portfolio that I'm working through right now. So that being said, I steered away from multifamily in the beginning because, truth be told, me and running numbers is a work in progress. So I found it easier to run numbers on single family. And there's a couple other reasons, but that was like my underlining reason why I didn't want to get into multifamily, because I didn't know how to run the numbers well.
Okay.
But now that I've gotten a little bit more comfortable with running numbers and I see how quickly you can scale, I have started to pivot towards doing both multifamily and single family.
What I've noticed is that it's the same amount of work. So it's funny because when you get in, once you have the underwriting part all figured out, right? The numbers, also how to find a deal and just, size up the deal, see if the deal makes sense. The work you put into a single family, into a 4 family, into a 10 unit, into a 100 unit, it's really the same. It's the same amount of effort, the same amount of sweat. The only thing that is different is just the money. If you have enough for a down payment for a bigger project, I always tell people, just do it. Right. Don't be afraid. Just because if you think you're going to fail the bigger project, what tells you you're not going to fail the smaller project? It's still exactly the same. And buyer, you got to know your niche. Your who are the renters in this area. If you're near transportation, if you're near stores, university, hospitals, it's the exact same work.
It is. You're
right? Unless you decide to take a bet on building a whole city like they do in Texas, because I've had a lot of deals like that offered to me lately. In Texas, they literally build whole cities made of single families. And I'm not familiar with that market because I'm not sure exactly what's the market for it. Who are the people? Now, if there is enough people with buying power in this area and vice versa for that kind of single family and vice versa. So this is completely unknown. But as long as you have, once again, you're near transportation, you're near hospitals, you're near schools, you're near a big city where people commute, you should be fine. Now, only the number matters. Right. The demographic is there. The demand is there. The number needs to make sense now. You need to find the right deal, the rights. You need to figure out how much it's going to cost you and what is going to be the sale price, right?
Yes,
to calculate your profit. So it's and when you mentor, because I want to take the rest of the time we have together to kind of go more on your on the mentorship you offer. We're just going to focus on women, right? Because this is the community we really want to support with this podcast, right? What would you say? Where can they connect with you? And what would you do? What do you have to offer to them, to whatever woman, and obviously men as well, but mainly women here who want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I would say, the best way to connect is either shoot me a text, an email, social media, any of that stuff, which you'll have my information. Do
you have meetups?
I do have meetups. I have in-person one once a month, the second Thursday of every month in New York. You can also join online, so you don't have to be just in New York. And I will say I've gotten an overwhelming amount of interest and demand for women's stuff. And I think I'm just going to do it. So I have people, long story short, I'm not a real estate mentor. I mentor them through the process, and I support them through the process. I have everyone go through the training that I went through because I wouldn't be able to do real estate if it wasn't for my training, if it wasn't for my community. And I would be shooting someone in the foot if I didn't suggest that to them, right? I usually I feel people out. I have questions that I ask them before I just say, hey, let's do this together, right? Because I want to make sure it's a good fit for them and a good fit for me to increase the success, right? So essentially, I walk them through a process to see if it's a good fit for each other. And then if it is, awesome, we get on board. And it's really just a matter of dialing in on what their goals are. And I plug them into the community that I have. What I'll slowly start to do is create a community for women that probably will just be in New York at this time. Because that's where I am and that's where a lot of my resources for that would be. And then just walking them through the same process that I went through and giving them access to the resources that I got. And essentially I would be giving them a shortcut because of all the mistakes that I made, I'll just, but everyone's going to have their own journey when it comes down to it. But that's in a nutshell. Yep. So just walking people through that process to let them see what it looks like to go through the mentorship. And just I can tell by how people respond and how people take action and what they do or what they don't do if it's going to be a good fit. I can tell pretty quickly just because I've been doing this for a while now.
It's about energy too, right? There is a lot that you can get from people's energy. Are they ready for it?
Yeah, 100%. And here's the thing. When you get into real estate, it's not just about getting into real estate. You have to invest into yourself. Like I had to develop myself personally a lot before I started to have the success in real estate.
Yes.
So people have to be open to that, and not everyone understands that, right? So I've restructured how I'm bringing people in and who I'm bringing in, and it's become a lot more selective because I don't want to. I want to make it as seamless for both of us as possible, right? So I'm going to give people the resources, the tools. If they can take advantage of them, awesome. I'm going to be there to support them every step of the way. So my process is at this point has become very calculated because I know what works and what has worked and what hasn't worked.
And so how do they qualify? What does it take for you to say, all right, we can work together? Is it motivation? Is it the questions they ask? Is it their background?
So you can tell a lot by a person by how they talk and what they say and what they do ultimately, right? So again, it's just a matter of them a lot of it is being open and being coachable. Like if I see that they're open and it's the energy, when you vibe with a person or you don't, right? And I tell people right away, and I'm cutting down the mentorship a lot just because being more selective because it's got to be a good fit. Otherwise, I don't want to feel like I'm pulling people along.
It is true. Sometimes, when people have a desire to accomplish something and behind the work is not there. So I absolutely agree with it. I think that there is a lot of sacrifices to be made whenever you when you take on any type of project. Hell, just painting your house.
Yeah.
It's just, it's funny. I'm trying to find kind of an example, but it's just when you start something, you gotta cover your furniture, move things around. There's gonna need 3 layers maybe of paints. It takes way more than people think.
Right.
People think like, I don't like white, I want it blue. And it's never like that. So I completely agree. And the other thing is, do you think that the time they have to dedicate also to real estate matters? Do you think it can be a side gig, or do you think they need to be full time in it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It can be a side gig. And you have to be committed to that side gig, meaning you have to say no to all the distractions. You have to lock yourself in a room, even when your kids are screaming at you, wanting stuff. Even when your friends are calling you, like you have to be dedicated and you have to be committed if you're going to start it as a side hustle. But it's totally possible. That being said, most people start out doing it on the side and transition into being it full time.
Okay, so that's good. Whoever wants to have more information here, if you have a little bit of spare time and don't know what to do, there you go. Tamara will help you.
Exactly.
Tell me more a little bit about, I never asked you about your upbringing, your childhood, your influences. And it's the longest conversation we have ever had, by the way, guys, because we met at networking events and then we kind of we were like social butterflies going left and right because, this is what we do at networking. But tell me more about that. I would love to hear your story.
Yeah, so my upbringing was a little bit more complicated. I think I was the only one. I think I was the only one not to realize that. So, I guess the long story short is, unfortunately, my mom was challenged with some health issues. So, I was the oldest of 3, so it required me to step up to the plate a lot and be the responsible one, essentially step into leadership at a young age, which, some people view as a superpower, but it also had its downsides. But, I'm grateful. I definitely had a little bit more of a challenging upbringing. All that to be said, I have had some amazing people in my life. I threw myself into sports and I had some amazing friends that really, got me through some of the challenges, and I got very fortunate with the friends that I had growing up, because some people, if you have a challenging upbringing or challenging family situation, you go into different directions like drugs and stuff. I just happen to get very fortunate and have amazing friends who, my friends are pretty successful. I think the most important thing is having the right people around you.
I agree.
So I got very lucky and very fortunate having amazing, incredible people around me, and just supportive people. Like, it was very fortunate because I fell into some of these relationships. And I had some great influences from family, and so it wasn't all family. Just in general, I got very fortunate by having the right people around me, and that is probably what propelled me to have success in my life. I don't think it could have very easily gone in other directions. I could have threw myself into drugs. I could have, but thankfully it was sports, and that's where I met a lot of my best friends growing up. So it worked out beautifully. I have a handful of best friends from growing up, and I'm still grateful for them.
That's wonderful. And they always say, for a flower to bloom, for a plant to grow, you need the right environment, you need the right soil, you need the right amount of water. It is not about just planting the seed and waiting for it. There is so much, that's involved into somebody flourishing and blooming in life. So I love the fact that you were able to surround yourself with the right people. I think that nowadays we're more aware that whoever we surround ourselves with is going to influence who we are going to become.
100%.
I feel that it's now people are more aware that if a relationship doesn't work out for them the right way, they need to move on.
Right.
They need to surround themselves with people who are going to uplift them. The podcast is about that too, and this is what we wanted to do as well, is really create a community where we can share stories and uplift each other. So I love that you talked about your past. That's really amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, awesome. It's beautiful what you're creating, because a lot of people and women, you can be a mom, you can run a business, you can get into real estate, you can do all the things. You just have to figure out how to do it, right? But it's true. Very possible. And that's one thing I love about my community, is that's what I wanted to have all the things. I wanted to do all the things, and I knew it was possible. I just didn't know how. And there are women in my real estate world that are doing it all, right? They're raising the family, they're supporting their husbands, they're running the business, they're running the real estate businesses together, and it's possible. Like what you and your husband do is amazing, So, so if I can, leave one thing out there for women, is it's possible, right? And you can do it.
There's the right amount of support and information. I agree. It's absolutely possible, and you are also. This is more recent, or you've been also. You created a nonprofit dedicated to mental health. Can you tell me more about it? When you told me about it, I was dying to call you and ask you more about what were the motivation, what happened, what's behind it. Do you want to tell us a little more about it?
I would love to. I'm so proud of this. So a couple friends and I went through a leadership program, and I've always been very involved in working with youth. I've traveled all over the world to orphanages, to different places in the country, working with youth. And so it's always been a passion of mine. And because I saw challenges with mental health at a young age in my family, it became something very near and dear to me. So long story short, we were going through this program, and we had one of the things we got to do was create, what was our legacy going to be? For me, it's more about impact, but what was our legacy going to be? And I immediately knew that this was the time to do it. So we started this nonprofit. It's called Waves of Love. I'm very, very proud of it. One of our goals and visions is to create a world that's more kind, loving, and abundant. And our vision and our purpose is to protect the mental health of youth. And we've partnered...
Mainly young people? This is where your focus is?
At this time, because here's the thing, if you have a good handle and know how to properly invest in your mental health at a young age, we'll have more healthy grown-ups, right? Look at the world today. If more people were investing in their mental health versus arguing, fighting, all the things that we could get into, we would just, we can all have an abundant life and not fight. We can all have an abundant lifestyle and do all the things without having all the the wars and all the things. So, we really want to drive protecting mental health, and, make it not a stigma. It's not a bad thing. It's a beautiful thing to invest into your mental health and to make sure you're thriving, For me, it's a very attractive quality in a male when they tell me that they've done a lot of mental health work. I think it's a beautiful thing. So one of the things we're doing with Waves of Love in the near future is we're having a panel. There's also no one size fits all when it comes to mental health. And that's what the panel is going to highlight is, we're going to have very different panelists. We're going to have one panelist who is an Olympic, one of the most famous bodybuilders in the world. He trains people on, what's going on in your body is a reflection of what's going on in your mind, right? So he has a very elaborate program on mental health, and it's all through training and physical training in the body, which is beautiful. And I've gone through his training, and it's amazing. And then we're going to have one of the top psychologist in the city who runs one of the biggest practices and was just recognized by Forbes. She's a therapist, so she does more of the traditional what you think of therapy kind of thing. She's phenomenal. And, and then I went through I've done a lot of personal development, and one of the programs that I went through was called Altru, and it's one of the best leadership programs, personal development programs that I've ever been through. I'm going to have one of their representatives. The underlining thing is they're all completely different when it comes to investing into your mental health, but you have to figure out what works best for you, because I would not tell everyone to go through, Ron Williams' training program, even though I think it would be good for everyone. It's not going to be a good fit for everyone, right? I wouldn't, some people come into will come and look at the leadership program that I went to, and it's more of a group thing. It would not work for them. They need a one-on-one a psychiatrist or therapist. And so there's no one size fits all, and it's beautiful. If people work through more of their issues that they got from a young age or whatever it came from, we'd have a more healthier world. So that's a lot of the purpose behind Waves of Love.
What common trait do you find in the young people you help? Is it something is there a pattern, or do you feel that each and every one of them have faced different challenges?
Yes. So it very much so starts at home, right? So there are some kids who've come from great families.
So not at school, at home.
Yeah. So a lot of this starts at home. And what it comes down to is some kids are going to come from an amazing supportive family. Unfortunately, that's, and that's beautiful when that does happen. Unfortunately, not everyone has that support. And so some kids are a product of divorce. Some kids are a product of abuse. And what I've learned through going through all the personal development and the leadership programs that I've gone through is everyone's dealing with something. And, but we put on these masks and we like to pretend that we're not dealing with it. And that's where the problem is, I think. I think the problem is we need to make it more normal, and not the stigma for people to say, hey, I'm struggling with this, and not look down on it. It's a beautiful thing for people to own what they're dealing with and get the support they need. The way I look at it is we just would live in a much healthier environment and world if people could just be okay with not being okay sometimes, and be okay with getting help or support that they need. When they don't, that's when the problem comes, right? That's when the problems turn into bigger problems and affect other people, right? Like the divorce rate. Just think if these parents that are fighting, look at the impact it's having on the kids, right? And they grew up impacted from this, and they don't have an outlet, or they don't know what the outlet is. And that's, what I want to make more of a normal thing is letting kids know that they have a place to turn. And it's not just kids. That might be our focus. We did partner this year with the JED Foundation. But it's not just for the kids. It's for anyone. We want to break that stigma of it being a bad thing. We want people to be like, hey, I'm struggling with this today. And it's okay. It's okay to struggle. We're human, right? Humans struggle. And that's just the reality. For whatever reason, it just became something that it's looked down upon. So that's part of it. We just want to make it more normal to get help and be okay with not being okay sometimes.
So that's the long-term goal. You want people to be able to reach out, talk about what's wrong, and be able to tackle any type of issue before it becomes a trauma.
Exactly. well put. That's exactly. And I just want people to know they have resources, they have support, and whatever, there's no one size fits all. There's different ways of tackling these things before they become a trauma. Exactly.
So what is the long-term goal for the nonprofit right now?
I would say the long-term goal is just to get known, that we can give you support. We can provide you with support or point you in the right direction. And to also just break the stigma of mental health being a weird thing. It's a beautiful thing when you address it properly. It doesn't, before it becomes, like you said, a trauma.
Just the fact that you have, a professional bodybuilder and, people who have succeeded in life and still want to connect with, their trauma and helping other people prevent getting traumas and things like that. You really feel that it's just it's a common problem. We're all concerned by it. We're not just insignificant because we don't matter, and who cares, if we feel better and we tackle our problems or not. I feel that just because they're, like I said, big names, we think that those people don't have traumas. They're like, you can relate. You say, wait a minute, I'm not insignificant. This person succeeded in life. They had traumas.
Exactly.
What's going on? Maybe I want to heal me too. It's just such a great example when you have powerful, or famous people speaking up for those things. It makes a hell of a difference, especially for young people who look up to all those, stars and, once again, famous people. So great stuff. I'm happy that you're having this relationship with other, that you're collaborating with more people. I think it makes it even more powerful. And so it's really wonderful. I'm so happy you've taken that path too. And it suits you very well because you're shining. Your aura is wonderful right now. You're so bright. I'm really wishing you the best. I'm so happy you came today. Thank you so much for coming, Tamara. I'm going to put all the links and description in the description down below. If you want to connect with Tamara for any reason, can be real estate, want to know more about her nonprofit, or if you want to volunteer, just get to have a chat with her. You'll get to connect with her. Just check the description.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Give me a
Thank
hug.
you so much for having me. This is beautiful.
Oh my gosh. I feel that it was even too short. I feel we should have I need 2 hours. I need 90 minutes with a woman. No, 120, minutes with a woman, not 60.
Well, what is really...
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep building your own success story. If you loved what you heard, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it.